Okay, so we have the main floor pretty much done except for the fireplaces. And we're going to come back and hit those in a little bit later. What we need to do now is create our foundation. Now the foundation goes underneath the main floor, and it needs to be under all of our exterior walls, including the garage, but there'll be different depths of that foundation. Now, for us, there is not a plan for how that basement layout is done. So we're going to create an unfinished basement, and then we'll leave it up to you to design how the rooms are laid out. Well, if you want bedrooms down there, theater rooms, whatnot. We will be putting in a mechanical room, so we have access to heating and cooling and all that good stuff, hot water, power supply, things that are of that kind of importance. So we'll put the mechanical room down in the basement, and that's kind of the plan for this. And we'll place our first set of stairs so we can get those in position. So in order to do that, we need to do a couple of changes. We're going to come over here to our project browser. We're going to look at our floor plans again. And right now in the main level floor line, we're now going to move to the basement level floor line. So double click there with the left mouse button. And when we get there, all we see are the section cuts that we put through the building, and because those are infinite through the space, and our elevation markers. There is no walls. So we need to see those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and make that happen so we can see where those walls should be. We do need to make sure things are lined up exactly in there so that we can see everything. So what we're going to look at here is going to go to our properties. We're going to scroll down until we get to where it says underlay. Now that underlay right now says none, and that's our range base level. So we're going to click in none, hit the down arrow, and we're going to select main level floor line, and then apply. Now we can see our first floor as a shadow in gray line, so we know where those walls are located. Makes it kind of quick and easy to make sure everything stays lined up the way it should. Now we won't see the detail in the walls, and that's fine, but we do see where everything goes. Okay, now we're going to do a quick little jump of explanation. We're going to go to our elevations for just a moment. I'm going to go to the front elevation, and so you understand kind of where we're at here. We have a basement footing. There's a basement floor line. There's a garage footing. And then we have finished grade, top of foundation, top of basement windows are all set up in here. Now, if we can't see those well enough, for instance, here there's an overlap. What you can do is come along, find your dimension line, and you should be able to find a mark. Now, we should notice it's locked, and that's fine. But what we're going to do is hit this little square dot here and see if we can't find a little beading element in there. So we get that to click in. It's a little tricky when they're overlapping like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock and pull this one out a little further. And so you can see what I'm talking about. See this little mark right here, this little up, down beat. If we click on that, we can break. Excuse me. We can break the leader line, and we can reposition where that text is, so it's a little easier for us to read and know what's going on there. And there's no problem with doing this. It's one of those things that make things a little easier to navigate, so things are understandable. Okay, now what we're going to do here is we're going to know where we're at. We got to go from the basement footing. Now that's the top of the footing. The footing goes underneath that. When you're doing foundations, your footing, the bottom of the footing needs to be down deep enough that the top of the footing is below the frost depth. Now, the frost depth for Salt Lake City and the Wasatch Front is 3 feet. What that means is it is potentially possible for the soil along the Wasatch Front in Utah to freeze 36 inches from surface to depth. We want to make sure our footings are below that so that when that frost or freeze happens, it doesn't expand the moisture to the point where it raises the buildings up. That's kind of an important thing to do. It's called frost heave, and when ice freezes, it expands, and we don't want to raise the buildings because then when it thaws, it's going to drop the buildings, and they are not designed to handle that kind of abuse. So we want to make sure that our footings are below the frost depth, and that is the entire footing needs to be down below that. All right, now when we look at footings and foundations, there's a foundation wall and a footing. Here in the West Coast, we separate those. We have foundation walls and footings, and together they make up the foundation. On the East Coast, it's one and the same. They don't separate those out. So there's a little bit of definition separation there, but not a big issue. But we will use these settings in the elevation to set that. All right, that being said, let's go back to our basement level floor line. And the house I'm using has brick on it, so I need a thicker or foundation wall than I would if I'm doing stucco or siding. A stucco or a siding house can get by with an 8-inch thick foundation wall. But when you go to brick or stone, you need to go to a 10-inch foundation wall. And so that's kind of what we're doing. Now you can do a 9-inch, but what that requires is for whoever's doing your foundation to adjust all of their forms, which is an increase in labor cost. So we stay with the standard sizes, then they are ready to go, and they don't give us a surcharge. So to do all this, we kind of have to get an idea of how we want that to go. Now, we've already established that there's going to be a bearing wall right through the middle here. That's going to continue to be the case, and we'll put that wall in as well in the basement because that's where our weight's going. But the foundation is a structural element. Now, it can be argued that the exterior walls on the main floor are also structural, and that would be correct, but we don't put them on a structural layer. They stay architectural. However, the foundation is structural. So they go from the architectural tab to the structure tab, and I'm going to start with a wall. This is our structural wall, which will make up our foundation wall. We're going to select that, and then we're going to go into our properties, and we're going to go find a foundation wall. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I've given you a few of them there to work with. So we have an 8-inch foundation, a 10-inch, there's a 12-inch, and apparently we got a 24 and 36 in there as well. Weird, not that I need anything near that size. But we're going to go, if you're using, again, brick or stone, you want to do 10-inch. If you're doing siding or stucco, you want to go ahead and use your 8-inch. Now, I do have some siding here on the house, so I'm going to go ahead and show you that first, which is where this bay window is. So if I was to do a siding or a stucco home, I'd go to 8-inch concrete, and I'd go find the walls I'm going to trace under. Now, when we look at these walls, your siding is on the outside of that foundation wall. Okay, so when we're looking at this, the location line is finished face exterior. It's best if it's finished face, if it's core face exterior is what we're looking at. So then the core of that area, it's going to be the base constraint is the top of the basement footing. So it's going to go all the way down the basement. And its top constraint is going to change. So we have to change this every time you restart. This does not lock in like other settings. The structurals are a little different when we get to the structural tab. You need to make sure you're going up to the top of the foundation. Okay, now watch that very carefully. Make sure you get that done. And I'm going to start here, and it's going to be, again, at the core face. I'm going to make sure it's up here, the core face. I'm going to grab onto that, and I'm going to flip it over. And so it's going to follow. I'm just going to trace off the exterior of this wall. And remember, I'm not seeing all the detail here. I'm just going to trace that over, and then it's going to come right in. And then they're cancel. Now, that would be an 8-inch foundation. We have to do things a little different when we use brick and stone. The siding and the stucco are going to be on the outside of the foundation. Then they're going to overhang it. They're going to overlap it a little bit. In fact, if we were to look at our section cut, let me move this up just a little bit here. This is section cut 1. We're going to move that up. So I'm cutting through this, and we're going to go to that view. If I look at what's going on here, now when I get there, I've only been looking at one floor, so it's very narrow. You can take these blue dots and you can expand so you can see where everything is, which is very, very helpful. And when I zoom up, I'm seeing all these different sides and angles, and I'm not seeing a lot of detail. I need to see the detail now. So to do that, down at the bottom of the scale is you have a box here that says detail, and you have one here that says, get that in there for you, this little cube that's your realistics. I'm going to go to detail first and make it fine detail. And that's to bring in all of the detail lines that we have. And when I zoom up, what I'm lining up with is this line here, this siding, is going to come right down to that foundation. Now, it's not exactly in the right position at this point. So there's a couple things I would maybe want to do with that. I'm not sure why it didn't grab that finished face core. I have to go back and look at my settings on there. But I do want to actually modify that so that this and this edge line up. And if I can get that to cooperate, that would be really good. There we go. So it's going to be flush. So at the edge of the siding, or the inside edge of the siding and the outside edge of the stud is going to be lined up. And that's where that footing is going to sit. And we'll show you what's going to happen there. Well, I can show you here now. So what will happen is when I go in and modify this wall, the siding needs to come all the way down and overlap this joint. Now, right now, they are connected together, and that's not going to happen until I do a few more things to change it. But this wall will eventually change. The base will change from the main floor to the top of foundation. And that will bring it all the way down to sit on that foundation wall. And so that's the ultimate goal where we're headed with things, to get our details right. And this is where we want this to be. And then we'll have a flashing, a little piece of metal that goes underneath the siding and comes down over the foundation to seal that off. Okay, now it's a little different when we do our basement with the brick or the stone. So we did exterior here so that the wall, it has a little bit of a lip on the inside of the foundation. It's opposite when we do stone. So we then go again, structure, wall. Then I change it now to a 10-inch, and I'm going to do the locations finished face interior. So I'm going to follow the inside of this concrete walls and follow the gypsum board line above. So when I start that, again, basement footing up to top of foundation, make sure you are changing that every time. It does not set and hold. You have to, every time you start. Then grab that line right there. And now if you look, when I'm drawing, the brick is going to overhang the foundation just a little bit. That is super important. Your stone and your brick, when there's rain or sprinklers on there, you want there to be an overhang for water to drip off and not soak up underneath into the foundation. Because of the way that's set, we can't really do the same type of condition we have with siding. So that overhang is really important that we have that. And that's what you're creating, is that little gap between the two. So we'll go ahead now. We're here. We'll go around and trace the perimeter of our home. And it's a home now because it's starting to take on personality and characteristics. And I'm just going to work my way all the way around. And it does take a minute to do this, but enjoy the tranquility of just clicking on corners. And I missed that one just so much. Dang it. And if you miss, we're going to come back and you're going to fix it. So I've got one there to fix. So you're really looking for that magenta box, that little square, to make sure you're getting the right endpoint. Coming all the way over. And again, that overhang is going to be super important to make sure everything works right, gets built right. And a lot of people think, oh, it's not that important, but it really is. All right, we made it to the garage. Yay. We've got some walls on the inside here that are wood, so we're going to do a little mix up here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep following that wall. There's another mistake. Look at that. Way to go. So I'm going to put that in an angle so we can see how to fix it. Again, following around the inside edge. Mistakes are okay. Don't beat yourself up over a mistake. Oh my goodness, it's not a traumatic thing. All right, so that's our 10-inch going all the way around. We do not have all the way around our garage, however, yet. So let's go ahead and fix our mistakes that we had. There's a couple of them. So we're going to go find those real quick, because there's one here. And again, using the line tool, put things where they need to be. We want everything to be the more precise and perfect you get your drawings, the least amount of mistakes and extra costs you will have on your job site. All right, so up here now, we've got that little crooked wall going a crooked mile. Just square it up. All is well with the world. And then I've got over here, I need to connect those. So I'm going to do a corner from the 10-inch to the 8-inch. And it's just a pretty simple little connection there. Now, this wall on the garage, these two walls, they're 2x6 walls. They have to be because we have to fire rate them. It needs to be a 2-hour rated firewall. It means a 2x4 is not going to work, nor will you get the right insulation amount. It's going to have type X 5/8 gypboard or 2 layers of 1/2-inch gypboard. So it's kind of interesting how that works, but that 1/8 of an inch, so that 5/8, that 1/8 of an inch extra adds an entire hour rating to the gypsum board. So we want to make sure we get that right. But I'm going to go back to my structure, and here we're going to use the foundation, the 8-inch foundation again. Again, anytime I can save money on materials, that's a good thing. So we're going to switch to an 8-inch. Now, if you've looked in your garage, there's a little lip where you can see that the concrete is not covered completely by the wall. So on this one, I'm going to trace. Oops, I did not do my setting. I missed it. Let me do that again, show what happened. So I did not change my top constraint. So when I started my foundation wall, you cannot see it unless you change that. You will be drawing blind. So if you can't see what you're drawing, then you've missed a set there. So I'm going to change my top constraint now to top of foundation. Now I can start my foundation wall. I can see what I'm drawing. I'm going to flip it over, and it's going to be now overhanging on the inside of where that 2x4 or 2x6 wall is. This gives you some room to work to make sure everything lines up correctly. And we're just going to go to here and then down to here. And we're going to do a little bit of work here. We're going to just corner trim those together with our modify. Again, here to here. And this wall to this wall. And there's a little bit of a lip right here. Not a big fan of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this one wall to line up with the one we have. Just shift it because my overhang here is fine. I can accommodate that with the siding, but I want this to be flush. This comes over, and then the same thing here. Now this one seems a little bit more off than it should be. So I'm going to first line it back up on this side, and then we're going to use this and this wall and line those up. So keeping things flush, looking at where things are at, thinking how things will go. So we may have lost an inch in our foundation, but we are at least in a good spot. Okay, so now everything has the same depth. It's all set as a footing and foundation. I am going to put in this 2x4 wall again, though. So that's going to be a structural wall. I'm going to go back and get my 2x4 partition. Now you can put just the studs. I'm going to go ahead and do it as a regular wall and just trace it across. And I did the same thing again. I got to watch myself. I need to set that top constraint to the top of foundation. And then I'm just going to trace that wall off. Now, again, I'm not making myself very good here. I'm showing bad examples. I did not change my lines, so I'm going to do finish face exterior up to top of foundation. I have to go back and reset it because I started over. I grab my wall. There's life in the good fast lane of all fast lanes. And I'm just going to take that all the way across. Not that we're about doors or anything. It's going to go all the way across until you decide how you want to work that. This is a bearing wall. It's underneath the other bearing wall. So we can put doorways in it, but you can't remove it. So that wall stays. Okay, now let's go look at what we did in 3D. So by putting in those walls, and we can tilt our house now all the way up, you now have a foundation. Now there's a gap here, and that's intended for right now, okay? There's a purpose behind that. It's so you can see your framing when we get to the framing. But there are all my foundation walls, all in their nice, pretty glory, and everything's good to go, and they're various sizes. Except I need to do a couple things with the foundation. This foundation wall doesn't go all the way down. I had to draw it going all the way down so I could see it to draw it. But this wall, the base, is the top of the concrete footing. So that's going to come up. And so is this one. So my base is changing. Top of big garage footing. And then we turn the wall a little bit here. And these two walls are also the same situation. Now you can do your control key and select two walls. And then make that change. Again, you're changing the base constraint to the top of the garage footing and pulling those up. Now the walls that are between the house, however, those 8-inch walls, they have to stay going all the way down because they keep the house separate from the garage. All right, go ahead and get that much done. That's pretty fast. The foundation goes very, very quickly. And as soon as you get that done, we're ready to go to our footings. Footings are what spread the weight of the building out through the soil so it doesn't sink. And we're going to put those on in 3D. It's the easiest place to do that. So again, we're in our structural tab. Now then go over to foundation. So we got structure with the walls and foundations over here. And we're going to do this wall footing. The one right here in the middle that says walls. And then click on that. Now, your footing depths are given to you by your engineer. As a general rule of thumb, you take the foundation wall thickness and multiply it by 3. So if you have an 8-inch foundation wall, then your footing would be 24 inches wide and 12 inches thick. That will be oversized every time. Every time. Most of the time on a house this size, where it's 3,000 square feet, you're going to get something closer to probably on this one with brick, probably, no, it's pretty close, 20, it's pretty close to that. Might be only 10 inches thick instead of 12, and it might be 18 inches instead of 24. It could even be down to 12 depending on the type of soil that you have. So we need to create a new footing. So my footings, I have a 36 by 12 and a 24 by 12 by 12. Neither one of those are helpful. So I'm going to start with the bearing footing, edit the type, and duplicate it. And then the size on this is we're going to go 18 where the 36 is, so 18 inches wide, and we're going to go 10 inches thick, so 12 to 10, and we'll get rid of the 2. So it's an 18 by 10, and I think that'll work. Yeah. And then we're going to come down and change our width to 1.5 feet and our thickness to 10 inches. Make sure you put the inch marks in or it will not stay. You'll end up with 10 feet. That's a lot of concrete. Okay, so at that point we hit apply, and we can hit OK. And here's the beauty of how these go on. They're already set. So all you do is pick the ball in the window, or the wall, excuse me, and it automatically puts the footing in for you. So it doesn't matter what wall you're picking, it'll always put a footing at the bottom of it. And so now we just have to go around and select all of our footings. So we click all of our walls, make sure you get all those in there in place, and turn things around as need be so that you can see them all. And it just takes a little bit of patience. Actually takes a lot of patience. So we put all these walls back in with their footings. Yay. And we'll swing it around to the back. And swing this one. We just want to go ahead and click every wall. Make sure there's a footing on the bottom of it. That's our goal. And because I brought this bay window all the way down, we're going to do that one as well. It does take a little bit of maneuvering to get to where you can see everything you need. It's good practice to get you navigating. All right, now when I tip this up, make sure I've got them all, because I don't want to miss one. That would be sad and bad and not make me very glad. All right, there's all my rhymes there. Okay, now I didn't get this one right here. That little wall right there is missing one. There we go. Now, this bearing wall that goes down the middle also gets a footing because it's got to carry that weight. So make sure you get that interior wall in there. All right, that's our foundation walls and our footings. Super easy, super fast. And go and get those completed. And we'll move on to the next stage. Nope, got to get these in here too. I keep missing these little walls. So we'll get those all in play. So every wall that's in your foundation plan needs to have a footing underneath it. Okay, go and get that done. Thanks.